In this demonstration, we're going to learn how to configure DHCP options. I'm going to go up to Tools and click on DHCP. If I expand my server, you can see that I've set up a scope for the 192.168.0.1 network, and my address pool runs from 192.168.0.1 to 192.168.0.100. I've excluded 192.168.0.1 and 192.168.0.2 as static IP addresses for my router and this server. Currently, I don't have any options set. Let's go over to our client and see what that looks like before we set up the options. We'll go ahead and do an IP config. If I do an IP config, you can see that we've picked up an IP address from the DHCP server. Our IP address is the first address in the pool, and I don't have a default gateway. If I do an IP config /all, and I scroll up, you can see that I don't have any IPv4 DNS servers, and I don't have a connection-specific DNS suffix, which are a couple of things that we're going to change when we go in and set up options. Let's go back to our server and take a look at setting up those options. Options happen at 3 levels that we commonly work with. The first level is server options. Server options apply to everyone who's a client of this particular server. Even if I had 5 scopes on there, 192.168.0.0, 1.0, 2.0, and so on, when I set a server option, all of the clients from all of those different scopes would receive that option. I'm going to right-click on Server Options, Configure Options. I'm going to scroll down and specify a DNS server. We'll put in the IP address 192.168.0.2. Now, we're going to go down and provide that connection-specific address name. It's the option 15 DNS domain name. I'm going to specify it as corpnet.xyz. There's lots of options in here, more than we could ever go through in any video. Just know that they provide extra information if needed. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. The server options apply to all of the server's clients. We also have scope options. One thing I want to configure here is the address of the router. The router is always done as a scope option because it's specific to that particular subnet. So I'm going to right-click Scope Options, click Configure Options, and specify my router as 192.168.0.1. The third level of options that we might use would be client options, which are done in a reservation. If I open up reservations, I've created one reservation for CorpNet2 PC2. If I wanted CorpNet2 PC2 to have different information like a different DNS server, then I could right-click the reservation, go to Configure Options, and set up options just for that particular client. Now that we've set up our router option as a scope option, let's go into our Windows 10 client and test it. From a command prompt, I'm going to go ahead and do an ipconfig/release. Then we'll go ahead and do an ipconfig/renew. You can see right away that we've picked up the default gateway, which was that 003 router scope option that we had specified. If I do an ipconfig/all, you can see that I now have an IPv4 DNS server of 192.168.0.2 and a connection-specific DNS suffix of corpnet.xyz. So, in review, options provide extra information. We can set them at the server level where they apply to all of a server's clients. At the scope level, they apply to clients of that scope. You can use a client option that applies only to one client, which is set in the reservation. All 3 levels deliver additional information to the client. By default, DHCP is only going to give you an IP address and a subnet mask unless you configure additional options.